Hello and welcome back, guys. Week number 3. Hopefully, the last week of this, where you will actually be in person next week, or we'll figure something else out. I'm going to introduce 2 new concepts today, 2 things to work on. Um, the first is the idea of warm ups. So, when we come in, sit down in class, first thing we're going to do, pull out our sketchbook and do something to get our brains going. Is it gets a lot of our textbook learning stuff out of the way, which means instead of spending a week learning about stuff like the 7 elements, the 8 principles, the 4 parts of a critique, we can introduce those concepts and then we can practice them and get to know them in these little 5 to 10 minute chunks every morning instead of saying like taking a week off of art completely and just studying them like crazy. So this is going to be our way of getting a little more familiar with that. And it won't be the only thing we do in warm-ups. There'll be a lot of drawing warm-ups, some things where you just have to be kind of creative and interesting. It's a lot just to get your mind focused on this subject, but it also gets a lot of the stuff for your midterm and your final all done and out of the way so we don't have to worry about it. All right, so let's have a look at what a couple of these warm-ups are going to look like so you know what's coming. So here's one of the drawing ones. It's just a really simple drawing prompt. I want you to have your sketchbook there and open, pencil in hand, and just start drawing a fantasy creature. It's a pretty simple idea. There's a picture attached, so you kind of know what I'm talking about if you're not that familiar with it. There's a couple examples there, and it's just like a free time to start to explore and get creative with this stuff. These are what we're going to start talking about today. These are the 4 parts of a critique. And the very first one is just simple description. And believe it or not, we have to practice this because a lot of people don't realize like the idea with description, and we'll get to this in a second, is really explaining the obvious. And this is just a good way to practice and get in that habit of when you approach a new piece of artwork, what's the way to start thinking about it, breaking it down, and communicating what you see. And that's what these ones are about. Another thing we haven't quite gotten to yet, the principles of design. There's 8 of those. You can see them up above the board right here. I'm going to put some interesting artwork in front of you, and we're going to have to be able to break it down and to understand what elements and principles the artist used in order to put them together. That's another big part of this. Here's another part of the critique where we talk about the meaning of it. A big, like, critiquing is being a critic, and it's having to arrive at a level of judgment. And I trust you guys to make a judgment on these things. As a human being experiencing this artwork, your judgment is valid. And so we're going to be asking you to express that. So, as promised, here's your first warm-up. Means you should have your sketchbook out, pencil in hand, and if you don't have your sketchbook, grab a piece of paper. The 3rd week, you should probably have it by now. And start writing down what you see here. Now, the temptation is to write something real quick and easy like 3 dudes. But what are they doing? Where are they? Is it nice? Is it terrible? You got to describe those things. Is there differences between the guys, or do they all look exactly the same? Those kind of ideas. Describe it like the person you're describing to isn't in the same room. Like, if they're sitting in the other room and want to know what you're looking at, how would you describe it to them? You really want to create a total visual picture. Think like an English assignment. Like, how are you going to describe this in detail? Not just the imagery either, but how it's made. What is it made out of? What's the material the artist used to create it? Where do you expect to find this art? Is this something you'd find in a gallery or in a book? What kind of book? What can you judge about the artist from this? Can you guess what era it's from? What style it's in? Anything like that. That goes in description, where it's just like the most basic, but you want to be over the top in how basic you are, how much you describe every little element of this. Another way to think of it is like if you're going to describe it to an alien who's never seen artwork before, how are you going to describe it? So it should take a few minutes. You want to make these descriptions really vivid. All right, so I'm going to leave this up for a few minutes, like the length of a song, and I want you guys to just take a little bit and try and figure out how to describe it. All right, go ahead.